Welcome, everyone. I am Enrique Acosta Gonzales, and I am joined by Ashkan Tashvir. And in this episode, we will be speaking about leadership under fire, overcoming crisis of trust. And Ashkan, as we were speaking, trust is such a vital component to leadership and business. So I can't wait to get into the content today.
Thank you, Enrique, and thank you everyone for being with us. Yes, trust. So how about we start looking into what trust is, or how most people may relate to it? Yeah, what is trust to you, Enrique?
Yeah, to me, trust is something that someone gives you and
Mm.
you give others that allows them to operate freely and you to be able to collaborate over a period or myriad of things and allow you both to experience the full journey of that relationship.
Yeah, see, if you want to zoom out a bit, we relate to different ideas, concept, fragments of reality quite differently. You know mm, inherent in being a human being. Yeah? So we have this subjective sense, and we also have external factors that are going to impact us, influence the way that we relate to various different things and ideas. So trust is one of them. Trust is one of these ideas that we may relate to very differently, depends on the culture that we're coming from, like our upbringing, the relationship between our parents and siblings, and um, our relationship with the government, and so on. Yeah. So if we look into the Oxford Dictionary, one of the meanings for trust, and I'm reading from it, is firm belief in the reliability, truth, or ability of someone or something. So that's one of the meanings. Now, while the dictionary is there to support us having the same sort of sense of various different words, so that then we can collaborate and talk and communicate and assume that when we are using this word, everyone else would make sense of it in a similar manner. We know that in practice, it's not like that. As I just mentioned, we relate to various different ideas, including trust, quite differently. And that's what I cover in my latest book, Meta Content, in what I call the nested theory of sense making. One of the layers I discuss cognitive map, and cognitive map includes the way that we relate to various different things. Trust is the invisible thread that binds relationship, the foundation upon which we build meaningful relationships, we connect with others. So we discussed that in the previous episodes. One of the distinctions, one of the ideas that Martin Heidegger, the German philosopher, brings up is this idea of Mitsein in German language, or being with. As part of our authenticity, we should perhaps acknowledge that we are not alone. We are not just by ourselves. It's inauthentic and inaccurate if we think that I live in isolation. So, as part of our exposure to the reality as it unfolds and we live our lives, we want to acknowledge that I live always in a context, in a context with others. I'm always with others. Now, if that's the case, if you need to live with others, you need to collaborate with others, you need to partner with others, you want to create intimacy with others, you want to create business partnership with others, if the secret, one of the secrets to your success and fulfillment of your intentions, the intentions you so care about, lies upon building meaningful, working, functional relationships with others, then we need to be obsessed with trust. We need to actually care about trust a lot. Now, when it comes to trust, often we may how can I explain it? So we may put it on the other party, you know, say, oh, this person is trustworthy, or this person is not trustworthy. Um, what I would like to bring up is trying to considering to relate to trust as a choice. You know, we have a choice to trust this person, this process, this thing, and and that doesn't mean that we always have these empirical evidences that this person is going to be trustworthy. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you with courage, you want to risk um, making that choice. Of course, you want to assess various different things, but at the end of the day, there's no guarantee that something definitely works, and that's inherent in the nature of life. So yeah, so this is how I think I would like to build a foundation to this conversation, looking at trust as something necessary. Not, it's not something optional. It's not something desirable. It's something so essential and necessary. I want us to see it as necessity. Number two is seeing it or relating to trust as a choice, and taking the responsibility that it is me who actively choose to trust, no matter if I have so many evidences out there or not. That doesn't mean that I'm saying that we just should trust blindly. What I'm trying to say is, um, in life, with all these uncertainties, all of these unknowns that new for us in any realm that we step in, there's going to be um, the things that you're not going to understand, the things that you're not going to know, the things that um, you can't collect empirical evidences in, so that then you can fully trust. So then you take the responsibility for the trust. So how does this land to you, like relating to it as a necessity, as an essential thing, relating to trust as a choice? How does it land to you, Enrique?
Yeah, it is a perfect way to look at trust because, for instance, right, currently there is a big thunderstorm over the home, right? I
Mm,
am trusting that the lights don't go out, that the internet doesn't go out. And this is trust that's just apparent. I don't even think about it. I am
mm,
freely choosing to trust the fact that that will not happen.
yeah,
And the funny thing is that we trust people even less. so
yeah,
we have to be conscious that it is a choice. We are choosing to trust. And at the same token, when we make that decision to choose to trust, we also have to rely on the fact that we made a good decision at the moment. It is fine,
mm,
and not make it such a big to do. But yeah, I love the fact that you have to be cognizant that you are making a choice, and trust
yeah,
is one.
yes, yes, yes. So now, so let's now take the conversation to leadership and trust in leadership. Yeah. So this whole series is all about leadership. The leadership is the context to what we talk about here. So when we want to provide leadership, effective exercise of leadership, or being a leader, um, obviously we need to work with others. We need to influence others. Sometimes we need to inspire others. We need to create alignment. We need to sell our vision. We need to keep reiterating our vision. We need to trust that our vision is being read and understood to a good degree. And um, you want to hear people out. You want to trust that people trust that you are hearing them out, and the list goes on. Yeah. So trust is quite fundamental to achieving anything working with your team. So we talk about fulfillment of intentions. We talk about the missions that the organizations have, teams have, and individuals have. But so trust is at the core of everything here. Now, how we can um, let's cut this part from how we can. Now, so let's look into some of the tangible examples where the lack of trust can actually get in the way. Yeah. So, do you have any examples, Enrique, um, where lack of trust or in unhealthy relationship with trust got in the way?
Yes, definitely. There, when we talk about trust in terms of leadership, you have to think sometimes about credibility and integrity.
Mm,
So, trust ensures that a leader is seen as a reliable and consistent. And when
mm,
followers believe in a leader's integrity, they are more likely to follow their vision and direction. There was a time where I did not trust the leader. I just simply did not. And it was because they had shown time and time again to make poor decisions that affected everybody.
mm-hmm,
The thing is that because that happened to me with that leader, I started to do that with every leader. And then that became
mm-hmm.
a problem because it was not every leader's fault that this particular one did what they chose to do. And
Yeah.
so when I started to have I had a bad relationship with trust now. I was really becoming an obstacle for the team because whether the leader was worthy of that by them showing credibility and integrity, I was already doubting them and maybe more than likely what we call poisoning the well, right? In
Mm,
the group
yeah.
because of my past experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, yeah, we see that. We see examples of that, like in our relationships, like our intimacy, all the way to business partnerships. Like many times we've seen that the things that they shatter trust um, basically ruin companies, like many um, seemingly successful startups that we were working with. They had a great potential, but then it was not the injection of capital or lack of capital, monetary capital. It was not the technology or the failure in their technology or software or techniques of business building. These were not the major factors in their failure, but their being, the way that the leaders particularly have been being, if we can put it that way. So um, yeah, that's very close to my heart, and that's basically a big part of motivation that I do the things that I do. Now, so you mentioned the word integrity, and that's perfect because like I wanted to also bring that up. So, in order for us to cause that trust, it's not just one thing that we need to do. Yeah. So I don't want to oversimplify this whole conversation around trust. It's not like, okay, so it's just a choice, or if this person ticks these boxes, then therefore I can trust that person. Um, in order for us to trust on both end, integrity matters. Meaning that I'm talking about integrity from a being discourse perspective, the being framework, and some of our audience are already familiar with that because they're going to go to the whole series. Um, the health of our relationship with the various different aspects of being, various different qualities, core primal qualities of human being, the way that we relate to anxiety, the way that we relate to fear. You just mentioned that you had some bad experience with one particular leader, but then you projected that onto every other leader out there, and that's something for is something for you to own, and that's not the fault of all leaders in the world. So, but then, like easily we can fall into that, we can succumb to that shadow of a bad experience. Um, so many people, like they go through this bad experience with a particular partner in their life, um, and then that would close them up. They don't want to be vulnerable anymore. Don't want to trust another person to let them come close to them because it hurts. If and only if at some point this person also turns to be a person who's not like is accepted by them. Yeah, that's the way that we can put it. So, but yeah, so the healthy relationship with fear, anxiety, with care, healthy relationship with responsibility. We just touched on it. Courage. It's another one. And the list goes on. So there's 31 different qualities that we discuss in the being discourse, and they all directly or indirectly contribute to our overall integrity, the integrity of our being. Now, both you who's about to trust this other person, and also the other person who is going to be trusted by you, um, the more integrous these two individuals are, the higher probability is there for us to be able to trust and then have that working trust to be there. So, and that's why we keep talking about integrity and we keep linking it to the trust building. Now, if you are a leader that um it's not just like poor decisions. You mentioned that, Enrique, we all sometimes make poor decisions, yeah? And I don't want us to be that unforgiving to each other or imagining that the leader should be like superwoman or superman. Um, but at the same time, like if you see, if that consistency is lacking, if the you as a leader, you're constantly coming up with promises, you're making promises, but then you keep failing in delivering that, so gradually all of these are going to influence the people that are working with you, the people that are subscribing to your vision. They're going to be impacted, yeah. So, and that's exactly where I link it to the being discourse, because your healthy relationship with commitment matters. Your healthy relationship with courage matters. Your healthy relationship with communication and partner, all of these key qualities of human being matter. So, all I'm trying to say is, in order for us to work on trust, we cannot just stay on the surface and go, okay, so let's work on trust. No, trust can be seen as the outcome of us working on our being and becoming more integrous people. So, and that's something that sometimes really takes lifelong commitment. Yeah. So it really requires us to be more aware, be more authentic, be more responsible, be more empowered, be more compassionate and forgiving. And so that is the foundation for the trust to be created. In other words, what I'm trying to say is just taking a kind of a behavioralist approach, or taking this rapid um, transformation of one attitude towards one, I mean, attitude towards one idea, which is trust, is not going to be necessarily working. How does this land to you? Like, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, you spoke about empowerment, and when it comes to leaders, the charge of empowering and delegating, that's something that leaders who trust their teams create a culture of empowerment. And once people are trusted, or
Mm,
leaders trust others, they encourage creativity,
mm,
innovation, ownership, leading to better outcomes. So empowerment is very
mm.
important. But
Yeah,
I think you mentioned uh, the need to get to the point where you can trust others. Uh, And what I love about that building of a need to understand that a trust is something that you're giving, that comes back to you in
yeah,
that relationship building.
yes, yes. That's correct. That's correct. So, yeah, so the problem that we see in multiple different realms, like in politics, in the relationship between the states and the citizens, with the relationship between various different fragments of people within the society, especially now with this identity politics, and like we have different groups of people. So we can see that the danger to this lack of understanding, but more than that, this trust deficit, that's basically what we're talking about here, is leading to social disintegration. It's damaging our social cohesion. Now, that's on the larger scale in from a societal perspective. But when it comes to organizations and companies, the same thing applies. Like if there is a deficit, trust deficit, um, it's going to lead to a crisis at some point. Yeah. So lots of companies, they have problem with employee retention. That's one of the biggest problem that, for example, particularly consulting or services companies have, because the people that they have, they're the assets. The people are the products, like they sell, like the consulting, top consulting firms and everything. And sometimes you see that like they just like add this bar, they try to make the environment like a kindergarten. They just like add all these like, I don't know, services, and thinking that with some coffees or like I don't know, like um, different entertainments, um, they can attract they can keep their people, while not knowing that, especially the new generations of people, um, they relate to economy and work, particularly, perhaps quite differently. Like there's no shortage crisis. Like a typical young person, particularly, is not very motivated by just paying them a bit more, or providing all these entertainment facilities or an equipment for them. Actually, they want purpose. They want to be able to trust. They want to be able to make meaning out of the work that they're doing. So that's basically what sometimes I refer to as we are in the era of purpose-driven economy. Um, Work has become a very, very important part of our lives. Now, going back to linking this back to trust is like, if instead of actually going and working on these more invisible, subtle, deeper qualities that upon them the trust is going to be built, the that bind, that kind of glue that basically connects people together and create that bond like a sport teams. So a big part of that is trust, and trust is not going to be created. It's not going to be developed unless people are willing to be integrous, meaning that people from the leaders all the way to the other people in the organization or team or in the society, they're willing to put aside their inauthenticities, overcome their inauthenticities, see things as they are as much as they can, identify the misconstructed parts, the parts that are not working in them and in their team, and go in with courage, with assertiveness, with compassion, with forgiveness, with authenticity, with responsibility, and so on. Now, this is the very point I would love us to really convey in this episode, that trust is not something that directly can be worked on the surface, but it's something much deeper. There's all these invisible qualities um, that we need to make them visible first to ourselves and others within the team or within the society, and then we need to address them. Yeah. So, for example, like if you take typical dominating political ideologies in the world, in the modern world, sometimes the representatives of those political ideologies, these political parties, that they run countries, they talk as if their political ideology has a complete theory of everything. So there's not much vulnerability, there's not much ownership in general here and there. And and that is going to impact the way that the people are going to trust them or relate to them. And the more deviation is being created, the more separation is being created, then the existing order is going to be under question. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's basically what I wanted to say. So we're focusing on on those deeper qualities that upon them, then you can build trust. Yeah. What do you think about that, Enrique?
Yeah, you have spoken about crises, right? And
Yes.
a battle for trust could literally become a crisis in an organization or in your leadership.
Yeah.
And in times of uncertainty, or crises, trust is what helps maintain the stability of the whole.
Mm,
Things tend to fall apart when trust is not present, and
mm,
teams are more likely to stay loyal and united under a trusted leadership. So we have to understand that if we're leaders, if we're running organizations, that piece of trust is squarely on our hands to navigate and to
mm.
foster.
Yes. Yes. And so I would like to also add this last part. Sometimes when we talk to people that are overly rational, rational purists, they just want to collect empirical data on every different ends. Like they think that trust is something as tangible as an exact science. I mean, you just sit there and then you pull out the formulas, and then if everything is, you know, lining up correctly, then I can trust. Now, you try to apply this in dating a person, like you're choosing your potential future spouse. You can line up all of these like different evidences that this person is going to make a perfect um, spouse for you. Yeah, so you want to jump into a massive unknown of entrepreneurship, like it's like jumping into this massive level of uncertainty. You can't really join the dots looking forward. Yeah, you can, like Steve Jobs used to say, you can look backward and you can connect the dots, but how you're going to look forward and then connect the dots, like so then we can't, as much as we love it, we cannot engineer everything, and that's the nature of life. There's lots of unknown, there's lots of irrational matters, the matters that we cannot completely predict them. Things like the way that your digestion system works, or the way that the weather works. Like mm, we can't exactly predict how the weather is going to be. You just talked about like what was going on here. So and this is the nature of life, and this requires us to be able to add a little bit of faith into our decision making. Yeah, and that links to this trust conversation. And by faith, I don't necessarily mean a kind of a religious uh, connotation. I mean faith as a way of knowing. Yes, it may not be as accurate as like sitting there and going through scientific methodologies, and fair enough. But the thing is, there are times that those scientific methodologies and approaches are not going to be suitable. You may not have the time, and you need to make quick decisions. And then sometimes the nature of what you're trying to solve is like what we talked about, choosing your spouse. So, so therefore, there are times that we need to take the leap of faith, and we need to be able to trust with courage and assertiveness, and accept the consequences that we couldn't predict. Now, you predict the consequences of things that has happened yet to the degree that you can, but at the end of the day, you cannot fully control the situation, and that's the nature of life. So that's again where trust and having a healthy relationship with trust comes to play. So um, do you want us to do a quick recap before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what you were
Oh, sure.
saying because you were talking, and I already had in my head brought up There's a time where the five letters of trust converts to the five letters of faith. And it's one of those things that you just have to understand. There will be a time where you can't have all the empirical data, where you
Mm,
can't have all the sage counsel around you, where you can't have a factual data points to say
mm,
no, this is the way it's going to go. And you mentioned the best example is a relationship with another human being, right?
mm,
Especially when it's talk about long term. But I was looking at those two, say, five letters, and there's going to be a point where that converts to the other.
yeah, yeah. That's correct. Yeah, and see, like sometimes I talk to certain scientists or I would say rational purists. They think that they're not trusting or they're not tapping into beliefs, or they actually do. Like for example, on our daily life, like the fact that you go to the butchery and then get some meat, and you're trusting that's a healthy meat that you're getting. The you go to all different shops and you trust. You go to cinema, and you're sitting there, you're just trusting that like no one is going to blow the whole building up. I mean, so we can't move unless we choose to trust at the end of the day and accept the consequences. Like not all the time that you trust, mm, everything is going to go well, but there is no other alternative unless you want to just keep isolating yourself and not move at all in life, which is impossible rationally. So, yeah, so to do a kind of a quick recap, I think what we discussed the importance of trust, we discussed um, um, why not to consider um, trust as a necessity and not something that is just desirable or optional. And we talked about trust as a choice, as this continuous choice that we need to make. We talked about trust and empiricism, and trust and collecting evidences, and then we linked it to beliefs and faith as an external factor to rely on. um, Take the leap of faith in the times that it's needed. We talked about the trust deficit in, particularly in organizations, and the fact that many of these objectives on the surface that the organizations actually want, like employee retention, like higher profitability, actually, like the different creating different streams of income and everything, it actually links to the integrity and the trust that is being created amongst the team. So and then we also discussed this thing that trust is not something just on the surface to be addressed directly, but there's this whole different qualities, the integrity of the overall integrity of our being as an individual and as a team, our collective being, um, um, influence like the trust at the end of the day, and the outcome and the probability of us fulfilling our intentions. And I think that I've covered all of the things that we've mentioned. Hopefully, anything I'm missing?
No, I think you had it all, but without trust, leadership can become very ineffective, allowing for fear, doubt, disengagement to replace collaboration and confidence. So it's a
Yeah.
foundation for successful and enduring leadership.
Yes, yes. Thank you. So, yeah, thank you, Enrique, and thank you, everyone, for being with us. I hope that you've enjoyed and benefited from this conversation today.